Intellectual rubbish. Mankind is prone to various foolish opinions, but a few simple rules will keep you from silly error. Aristotle could have avoided the mistake of thinking that women have fewer teeth than men simply by counting Mrs. Aristotle's teeth. Thinking that you know when in fact you don't is a fatal mistake. The writer himself believes hedgehogs eat black beetles because he has been told that they do. However, he says, if I were writing a book on the habits of hedgehogs, I should not commit myself until I had seen one enjoying this unappetizing diet. If an opinion contrary to your own makes you angry, that is a sign that you are subconsciously aware of having no good reason for thinking as you do. If someone maintains that 2 and 2 are 5 or that Iceland is on the equator, you feel pity rather than anger. Unless you know so little of arithmetic or geography that his opinion shakes your own contrary conviction. A good way of ridding yourself of certain kinds of dogmatism is to become aware of opinions held in social circles different from your own. The writer lived much outside his own country when he was young. He found this very profitable in diminishing the intensity of insular prejudice. If you cannot travel, seek out people with whom you disagree and read a newspaper belonging to a party that is not yours. If the people and the newspaper seem mad, perverse, and wicked, remind yourself that you seem so to them. Becoming aware of foreign customs, however, does not always have a beneficial effect. In the 17th century, when the Manchus conquered China, it was a custom among the Chinese for the women to have small feet, and among the Manchus for the men to wear pigtails. Instead of each dropping their own foolish custom, they each adopted the foolish custom of the other, and the Chinese continued to wear pigtails until they shook off the dominion of the Manchus in the Revolution of 1911. For those who have enough psychological imagination, it is a good plan to imagine an argument with a person having a different bias. This has one advantage, that the method is not subject to the same limitations of time and space. Mahatma Gandhi deplored railways and steamboats and machinery. He would have liked to undo the whole of the Industrial Revolution. You may never have an opportunity of actually meeting anyone who holds this opinion, because in Western countries, most people take the advantage of modern technique for granted. But if you want to make sure that you are right in agreeing with the prevailing opinion, you will find it a good plan to test the arguments that occur to you by considering what Gandhi might have said in refutation of them. Be very wary of opinions that flatter your self-esteem. Both men and women 9 times out of 10 are firmly convinced of the superior excellence of their own sex. If you are a man, you can point out that most poets and men of science are male. If you are a woman, you can retort that so are most criminals. We are all, whatever part of the world we come from, persuaded that our own nation is superior to all others. For us, the merits possessed by our nation are the really most important ones, while its demerits are comparatively trivial. It is more difficult to deal with the self-esteem of man as man because we cannot argue out the matter with some non-human mind. The only way I know of dealing with this general human conceit is to remind ourselves that man is a brief episode in the life of a small planet in a little corner of the universe, and that for aught we know, other parts of the cosmos may contain beings as superior to ourselves as we are to jellyfish. Other passions besides self-esteem are common sources of error. Of these, perhaps the most important is fear. Fear sometimes operates directly by inventing rumors of disaster in wartime or by imagining objects of terror such as ghosts. Sometimes it operates indirectly by creating belief in something comforting such as the elixir of life or heaven for ourselves and hell for our enemies. Fear has many forms. Fear of death, fear of the dark, fear of the unknown, and that vague generalized fear that comes to those who conceal from themselves their most specific terrors. Until you have admitted your own fears to yourself and have guarded yourself by a difficult effort of will against their myth-making power, you cannot hope to think truly about many matters of great importance, especially those with which religious beliefs are concerned. Fear is the main source of superstition and one of the main sources of cruelty. To conquer fear is the beginning of wisdom, in the pursuit of truth as in the endeavor after a worthy manner of life. There are two ways of avoiding fear. One is by persuading ourselves that we are immune from disaster, and the other is by the practice of sheer courage. The latter is difficult and to everybody becomes impossible at a certain point. The former has therefore always been more popular. Primitive magic has the purpose of securing safety either by injuring enemies or by protecting oneself by talismans, spells, or incantations. Without any essential change, belief in such ways of avoiding danger survived throughout many centuries of civilization. Science has now lessened the belief in magic, but many people place more faith in mascots than they are willing to avow. Neither a man, nor a crowd, nor a nation can be trusted to act humanely or to think sanely under the influence of a great fear. And for this reason, poltroons are more prone to cruelty than brave men, and are also more prone to superstition. However, superstitions often add to the gaiety of life. The writer says he has frequently received letters from men announcing themselves as the Messiah, including a man from Boston who claimed he was the god Osiris. A certain prophetess who lived beside a lake in northern New York State in 1820 announced to her numerous followers that she proposed to walk on water. The faithful assembled in their thousands beside the lake. She spoke to them saying, "Are you all entirely persuaded that I can walk on water?" With one voice they replied, "We are." "In that case," she announced, "there is no need for me to do so." And they all went home much edified. Perhaps the world would lose some of its interest and variety if such beliefs were wholly replaced by cold science. A wise man will find an abundant diet of intellectual rubbish in our own age as in every other.